Nurses do so much more than just provide medical care. They provide comfort, a listening ear, and can even start to feel like a part of the family when you're seeing them consistently week after week.
When I go to work, I make a difference. When I make a difference, I make some people better. Not all the time, but then you have that 1-2 patients that really can hold you up. It's not easy.
That's registered nurse Vaughn Alcedo. I'm Sarah Jane Castro, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, and your host for this edition of The Journey Continues. This episode is sponsored by Fresenius Kidney Care. Vaughn, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us what your role is at Fresenius?
I'm a home therapist nurse. So what we do is we try to get patients to go into homes like peritoneal dialysis or home hemodialysis. We teach them how to hook themselves up, operate the machine, so that way they'd be scheduling their lives around dialysis instead of dialysis around their lives, instead of living their lives around dialysis schedule.
Okay, very interesting. So kind of a little bit of a different type of a dialysis nurse then, it sounds like.
Yeah, and at the same time, I still moonlight as an acute dialysis nurse. And that's where I catch the acute patients, the newly admitted patients there, and welcome them into the dialysis world.
Okay. How did your nursing career begin?
I started as a technician back in the 80s. I was just drawn to it. When I came here and on my 20s, dialysis is not existent in the Philippines at all. Our neighbors just start swelling up and they say, oh, it's been voodoo, something like that. Until they start not unable to breathe at all, and there's no oxygenation, no treatment available, and everybody just thinks that, somebody's voodooed you and you're going to die, and sure enough, they die. And when I got here, I was like, what's been going on? Their kidneys fail. And high blood pressure is rampant from where I came, mostly because of our diet and everything. And then the economic situations that we have, it's just predisposed to it.
It sounds like you knew people with kidney failure, you just didn't know they were in kidney failure until you moved here and experienced that as a tech. Why kidney care? What led you to start that work from the beginning?
When I heard about kidney care and renal failure and I read into it, I just got hooked. And the realization that this is something I did not know, it gave me the drive to learn more about it. I started as a dialysis technician. I was enrolled in the Chicago Careers Institute. They were training dialysis technicians. We go in there for 6 months and they said, we learned phlebotomy, we learned technical stuff about the machine. That's how I got started. Then I eventually got my nursing degree and I ventured into bedside care and ICU care and whatnot. And I was like, I just came back to dialysis and I was like, just feels more fulfilling for me.
Okay, interesting. So you haven't always worked in dialysis. You had a hop over to ICU.
Right. I started when I graduated nursing. I was like, I want to venture into something different. Michael Reese for all hospitals, because I used to live in the Chicago area. After about a year and a half on different floors, I was like, I miss dialysis patients more than I realized that I would, really.
Why is it important to you to care for dialysis patients? What is it about that patient population that appeals to you?
I think it's because, you see them get better. You see them progress from denial to hatred to acceptance, and then to finally thriving and getting better and getting more useful and feeling the health coming back to them. And then my mantra then was like, I always tell my patients that, look, you're not sick. One of your organs is not working. We have an artificial organ here. Now you just have to live your life. If you accept it, you'll be good at it. You'll be whole again. And it works. And it's just amazing how I could see. I interact with patients who was downtrodden and just about ready to give up, and they see the light somehow, and they get better until they get transplanted.
So it sounds like you're doing a whole lot more than just the actual medical side of things. There's a lot of emotional support involved too. What makes somebody a good dialysis nurse?
I think it's compassion more than anything. It was sad because I saw how 9/11 affected us. But on the job market, when that happened, a lot of people got unemployed, and then they said, might as well go into nursing, have a steady job. But they're not cut for it. They don't even know how to empathize and what the word means to empathize with other people. And they fail. Yes, they have a job, but before you know it, they're quitting the profession because they can't stand it. All they see is the dirty work. Nursing is not always glamorous, It involves a lot of bedside care, and sometimes it could be very frustrating. So I think compassion more than anything.
And that's so necessary, and patients can feel that when their medical team cares about them and it has compassion and empathy for what they're going through. Let's talk a little about treatment options. You mentioned up top that you're a home therapies nurse. So what is available for someone who's living with end-stage renal disease and their nephrologist tells them it's time to start dialysis? What are the options?
They either have hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis to start with. So we tell them that, look, if a doctor says, you're getting into renal failure, it's time to plan for what's next. So the nephrologist would call me and tell me that, Avon, I got an office patient who's nearing renal failure. Can you talk to them? So I explained to them what the options are. Peritoneal dialysis being home. There's no needles involved. You go to sleep naturally anyhow, so you go to sleep and get your dialysis treatment. You wake up, treatment's over, you have your day with you. If you go on vacation, the company's going to send wherever you're going with the heavy stuff, as opposed to hemodialysis when you're in the clinic. There's needles involved and it's more dangerous because of the blood, but it's a very effective therapy. It's just that a lot of people are still not aware of what peritoneal dialysis is and how it happens. Some of them were just on a denial mode for the longest time. And then before you know it, they're in a hospital, they're fighting for their lives when it could have been prevented. I think the worst thing about kidney failure, it does not manifest as a headache. It does not show up with a symptom of, your imbalance going on. All of a sudden you're puffy and you're swelling and then you're feeling dizzy, your blood pressure goes up, and you said, I took my blood pressure medication, what's going on? I'm drinking. Now I'm peeing, I'm going to the bathroom, I don't have any problem. In the meantime, you're getting out of whack. The electrolyte balance, the fluid-based balance in your system is getting way out of whack, and before you know it, you have to go to the hospital because you can't breathe. You're drowning on your own self and your own fluid. That's what one of my biggest drive, if you may. If I could help them bypass the hospital, get an access place, get them into dialysis, and know their options as they go in, I think it's a better way because all they know is I have high blood pressure, Before you know it, kidney failure happens. By the time they got into it, they have the cardiac issue involved, the respiratory phase involved with everything else. Their thinking is out of whack. So the option of having, the access placed right away, it's going to be there, and it's not going to hurt while it's there. But unless they know and find out about it, they're at the mercy of finding it out themselves after they got hospitalized.
That's part of why we call kidney disease like a silent disease, because there aren't those early symptoms. That's why you have to be on top of your testing and be in conversation with your doctor, getting those tests done so that you can stay on top of it. And you're, like you said, you're not ending up in the emergency room all of a sudden, and now you're scrambling to figure out your options. You've had some time to think about it and consider what works for you and what doesn't. So speaking of that, does home dialysis work for everyone? Is that an option for everyone? What are some of the things you look at when you're helping someone decide what treatment works for them?
the first part is the, support that they have at home. A patient who is barely having a home to go home to, alone in the world, does not have anybody to support them, would be better off on the in-center situation. But if you have a family, you have a loved one living with you or close to where you're at, it could be at the home setting. We have patients that are dialyzing solo. If they're in the right environment, they're on a clean environment that, it's not going to hurt them to dialyze at home, we try our best to put them there. And then there goes to financial concerns, and we tell them that, if you qualify for in-center dialysis, you qualify for home, basically financially. I tell them that. The thing is there somebody who can help you lift at least 5 to 10 pounds of fluid to set up your machine with? If it's an 80-year-old person who has a good support, they could do dialysis at home. Whereas if you have a 40-year-old male who has trouble standing up, emaciated, does not have the proper functions and coordination, you cannot bring them home, even though they did not have the proper support with them.
It sounds like that safety is kind of a big factor of like, are you going to be able to perform this at home on your own? Or is it going to be safer to come into the center and have the experts care for you? It sounds like that's kind of a big factor. And then the support. So what are some benefits to choosing in-home dialysis if that's an option for you?
You'll be with your family all through the journey. You journey through the therapeutic effects of dialysis and the pros and cons with it. Then you have your loved ones with you all the way. It's not like, okay, I got to go to dialysis, see you in 6 hours. Whereas at home, everything is there. If you have something to do, somewhere to go, you could dialyze early in the morning and be free on the afternoon. If you have to go on a weekend trip, if you just want to go Saturday and Sunday, you could put the machine back in your car, drive off, do your dialysis there and enjoy with your family. Whereas if you have a scheduled dialysis treatment in center, say, that's my dialysis schedule, sorry. And then you miss that community thing that our families usually go to. It can easily lead into depression, because that's when you will see, like, what's the use of living? I can't do this, I can't do that, can't go there, can't do that. And it's bad enough that there's diet restrictions hovering over you that, you can't eat this, you can't just indulge yourself because you get in trouble. But being home is gonna alleviate a lot of that. I really believe that.
Yeah, it sounds like it provides a lot more flexibility if that's an option for you, because missing a dialysis treatment is so dangerous and you want to keep that consistency. So if they're doing in-home dialysis is going to be consistent, then it sounds like that's a really great option. Let's talk a little bit about the access points you mentioned earlier. So if you are doing peritoneal dialysis at home, what is that access like? We know that with hemodialysis, when you're hooked to the machine, it's usually in your arms, sometimes your chest. But what does the home access look like?
With peritoneal dialysis, it's going to be a surgically implanted catheter that protrudes out of your stomach. And then we put we call a transfer set on it that extends it to about anywhere from a foot to a foot and a half. It stays in your stomach and it dwells in there, and that's how fluid goes in. During the treatment, the fluid will be introduced into your peritoneal cavity, and then after a while it drains out, and that's how dialysis happens. We have a semi-permeable membrane naturally in our system. I tell the patient that, if you know a sausage casing, if you ever had a sausage, that's kind of what our stomach has. On one side is the fluid, and the other side is the bloodstream, and each side acts like coffee on water or tea on water that diffuses. You let it sit, and then let it drain, and your dialysis happens. Off you go. Explain to them in that sense, kind of make them realize, I have that, yeah. So the only thing is, with the peritoneal dialysis, you can't soak in a bathtub. You can swim in the ocean. On salt water, you're fine. But unchlorinated and stagnant water, tap water, you can shower with it, that's fine, but it's that too. With the technology that we have now, before they have to tape it all around their stomach and everything to keep it still, now they have belts and lanyards that act to hold onto that catheter and keep it in place without it getting pulled up by anything. It's amazing.
Is there a difference between the two types of dialysis in terms of side effects? Some people have heart problems after being on hemodialysis for a while. Does the same sort of side effect exist with peritoneal dialysis?
Yes and no. The one thing with hemodialysis, it's taxing to the heart when it happens. Because we have a 24/7 kidney. When it stops working, you only have that kidney on the 4-hour block that you're on the machine. It's every other day. So after the 4-hour block of treatment, there's another 24, 30 hours that you don't have a kidney. During that time, the toxins build up, extra water build up. And as it builds up in your system, your cardiac works harder, the heart works harder, the lungs work harder to compensate for it. Whereas with peritoneal dialysis, you're doing it every day. You do it a good 7 to 8 hours each night. While you're asleep, you have to sleep anyhow. And that's why it's more gentler into the system. When you get used to it, it's just like having a kidney. You have a more liberal diet. Fluid restriction is more liberal. You could drink much more water than on hemo. The only thing about that is with peritoneal dialysis, you are prone to infections. But if you're careful enough, I have patients who never had an infection in good 4 or 5 years. And then we have those that are getting infections every other month.
So it's a lot to consider, it sounds like, when you're deciding what works for you. There's some pros and cons to each and some things to weigh on what works best.
One other effect of hemodialysis is that, we tend to lose so much fluid at one time, then you cramp. Cramping, then the cardiac trouble and everything that goes along with it. And before you know it, you're so tired and exhausted. It's because of that 4-hour block that should have been stretched into 12-hour kidney function that we try to cover up there. The other backside of a peritoneal dialysis is our peritoneum is a natural organ and it could wear out. Usually in about 4 to 6 years after that, it starts wearing out and your filter is not going to work anymore. The peritoneum function is not going to be there anymore. And then you eventually go to hemodialysis. But I tell them, if you get into PD and get into the transplant program, get listed, by the time you're using up your peritoneum, you're advancing into the transplant list. So you might not even have to go full hemo. From PD, you go straight into transplant. And sure enough, we have a lot of patients that gets transplanted more, faster when they're on PD.
And if you have a living donor, it goes even quicker than that.
Right.
So our listeners might remember our episode with John and Sarah Chekowitz, a couple you worked with. Will you share another patient success story you're really proud of, somebody you helped?
About 5 years ago, I come across this patient from Aurora. When I got him, he was very depressed, and I was like, what's going on? Turned out that he was in the Army. After the Army, he became Aurora Police. So he was in the service when his kidney failed. He was a patrolman. When his kidney failed, he got sick. Then everybody just discounted him as dead. So so-and-so don't work anymore, kidneys failed, he's dying. Unbeknownst to them, he hears this. And you know how gung-ho police department could be. I could imagine the boisterous back and forth. So when I got him, I said, my doctor said, if I try hemodialysis, I might get better. And I was, so why don't you? And he was like, why? And I said, I'll help you. And I said, if you just follow me through it, we'll go through it. Before that, he was still on medical leave of absence. So after he started doing dialysis at home, he progressed into desk job. Now he's working and back into the Aurora Police Department. He was just a desk sergeant. And he was like, okay, I'm feeling better. I'm getting stronger. I said, good. Just have to build you up then. You need to start walking. So he started walking. But one thing about him is, he would hear you and listen to you. And then he said, okay, I'll try it. When he says he'd try it, he tries it. He goes out for it. Then he said, it's boring to just walk. I said, why don't you pick up golf? I was like, you're using upper body, then you're walking, and then you see you're out in the sun. He picked up golf. And then after about another 6 months, he was out on the streets. He said, Vaughn, I just pulled out my police car again. I'm back on the road. He got so excited. And after a week, he calls me. I can't breathe. So what do you mean you can't breathe? So I chased this guy in the alley. I ended up running for help. I said, you can't do that. And he was like, well, I felt so good, man. And I was like, yeah, you felt good, but you can only go so far. And then he realized, yeah, you're right. I said, yeah, sit down. I said, but this guy's getting away. Don't call him and let somebody else handle it. So he learned his lesson. So the next approach was to teach him how to gauge his energy, wherein he would have enough energy to work with and come back and rest. So he was able to get a shift wherein he would work 2 hours on the streets, go out on patrol, 4 hours on the desk, and then another 2 hours on the street, and then he goes home. And when he gets home, he dialyzes, he does his dialysis. And back then, he has a 5-year-old twin and a teenager that all lives with them, and they were very supportive. The wife was there to help him cannulate and do the machine. So when he gets home, the machine is set up. He sits down, gets his dialysis. After his treatment, goes out for dinner with the kids, with the family, and he was fine. To this day, he eventually retired. He's living life now. He's still golfing. He's enjoying life with his family, and he lives very well. He's still on dialysis, waiting for transplant, but he's doing much better. And only could think back is, there was a time when I thought I was going to die. And I was like, see? And that was 6 years ago. That was one of them I'm very proud of.
That's got to feel good to see somebody when they come in being so resigned. I've heard people say, I'm dying, I guess I'm dying. And then to empower them to take control of their health and make those steps. And now he's feeling so good that he got a little overconfident and started running. So that's got to feel good to you to see your patients make that transformation.
It stays and it lingers and makes it feel, worth all the effort that I did.
Caregiving can be taxing. So how do you take care of your own mental and physical health when you're caring for so many others?
I have my family. I have my wife. I have 3 kids. I enjoy them every day. Well, they're not kids anymore. Family more than anything. And I have my health. That's another thing. It makes me feel good to realize and face the fact that I'm not rich, I'm not a millionaire, I don't have this, don't have that, but I have my health. And when I go to work, I make a difference. When I make a difference, I make some people better. Not all the time. I would have patients who is just non-compliant and would not do anything that you want, but complain and say this hurts, that hurts. How come this is happening to me? What did you do this? No. If you start doing that, maybe you can help yourself. But it does, like I said, it doesn't always work like that. But then you have that 1-2 patients that really can hold you up. It's not easy. But I find the satisfaction of working and caring for these people, for this population. When I see them thrive and get better, it's very fulfilling for me.
Well, that's wonderful. I love that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
The National Kidney Foundation is a very good organization. I mean, my hat's off to you. You just don't know the magnitude of how you help. And I was like, I wish we have something like this in the Philippines. I think it will help a lot of people like it helps here.
Well, thank you so much, Vaughn, for spending your time with us, and we'll let you get back to caring for your patients. You have options when it comes to your care. To find out more about dialysis and other treatment modalities, visit our website at nkfi.org. Thank you so much to Fresenius Kidney Care for sponsoring this episode. Visit their website at freseniuskidneycare.com. I'm Sarah Jane Castro, and this is The Journey Continues. Prevention is a key part of our mission at NKFI. That's why at the end of each episode, we offer a health or nutrition tip.
Here's today's nutrition tip about calcium. Calcium is a mineral that is essential to bones and teeth, with 99% of the calcium in our body stored in them. Our bones are constantly being broken down and rebuilt, and we use the stored calcium in our body to do this process. Our nerves, heart, and the ability to clot blood all use calcium to do their work as well. As we age, we start to lose the amount of calcium stored in our body. In women, as estrogen levels decline with age, calcium absorption can also decline. Calcium is rich in yogurt, milk, fortified dairy alternatives like soy milk and almond milk, sardines and salmon with bones, cheese, tofu, green leafy vegetables like broccoli, turnip leaves, kale, fortified breakfast cereals, fortified juices, nuts and seeds, legumes and grains, cornmeal, and corn tortillas. Calcium is better absorbed by your body if you eat a food with vitamin D in it as well. So milk fortified with vitamin D allows you to better absorb the calcium in milk. Adults aged 19 years or older need 1,000 milligrams a day of calcium, and women over the age of 51 need 1,200 milligrams per day. Eating 3 servings of dairy foods a day can help you meet that goal. If you have chronic kidney disease, you may have to limit the amount of dairy-rich foods per day. Talk with your kidney doctor to know how much calcium a day is right for you. With today's nutrition tip, I'm Melissa Press, a registered dietitian nutritionist,